So now we're going to go ahead and we're going to move on to Jared with CaptionCall. And this is going to be a little bit different because this is not so much how to stay healthy, but definitely a very specific tool that people can use successfully if they've already had hearing loss. So Jared, while CaptionCall doesn't help people avoid hearing loss, it's certainly a great tool that can help them remain independent in spite of it. So can you start by telling us a little bit of the history of how that came to be and just a general overview of how it works?
Yeah, so CaptionCall started about 11 years ago. It is a federally funded program thanks to Title V of the Americans with Disabilities Act, which requires telecommunications to provide functionally equivalent access to telecommunications. So in layman's terms, the telephone companies have to provide access to those of us with hearing loss a functionally equivalent way to communicate over the telephone. And so we've developed a phone that prints the words on the screen so that people can read what they can't hear at the same time while they're talking on the telephone. If you have a hearing loss and you need captions, there is no cost for this to you. This is funded because we've been paying a fee on our telephone bill since 1990, thanks to the Americans with Disabilities Act. So we are able to come out and install that phone system for you.
Great. So who can actually qualify for CaptionCall, and what does that process look like?
So anybody that has a hearing loss and needs captioning qualifies for this program. There is no decibel threshold of hearing loss. If you're struggling to hear on the telephone and you need the captioning, you qualify. So the application process, there's a few different ways to apply. One, you can see me after. I can sign you up. I'll talk to you a little bit and see. You just let me know that you're struggling to hear on the phone. You can go see your hearing healthcare professional. Almost all the hearing healthcare professionals around Grand Rapids, West Michigan, know who we are, know how to get you signed up for this program. You can discuss that with them as well. You can also go online and get signed up as well. The next step of the process is they schedule an appointment with you to have us come out and install the phone for you. They show you how to use the phone. They train you on it, make sure you understand how to use it, and then we have customer support to support you afterwards. We have 13 call centers around the United States. A human being actually picks up the phone when you call us for help. You don't have to fight with any machines or anything. We know it's difficult for you to communicate with us as is. We're not going to create any more barriers. Again, that's all covered. There is no cost for this. We've all been technically paying for this since 1990 on our phone bills. That's where we get our funding to provide this service and program to you.
So you pretty much answered all of question 3 already, so I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to skip to question 4. That question 3 just had to do with technology, being nervous, how people get it set up in their home. How long does it usually take to get it set up in a home, Jared?
The installation process in the home takes about an hour. The actual install takes about 15 to 20 minutes. The trainer comes out, they'll ask you, do you have a landline, which is not required. Do you have internet? Also not required. But they just want to find out what your lifestyle is like. Do you use a smartphone? Are you tech savvy? Are you more old school? Do you spend time in the living room? Do you spend your time in your office? This will help them understand where to maybe put the phone. If you spend a lot of your time in a recliner watching TV, then they'll put the phone there. If you spend more of your time in the kitchen baking a lot, then they'll put your phone there. So they just want to determine your lifestyle and figure out how you operate and where to best put your phone. So 15 minutes is spent determining that. The other 45 minutes really is just showing you the phone and having you do a couple of test calls just to make sure you're comfortable with it. There are some features on there, and we may show you some of the features on there, or we may just say, great, you can pick up the phone, read the words, and it works, and you can hang up. Maybe 60% of the people that we do install phones for, that's all they want. They don't care about all the other features. They just want to pick it up, they just want it to work, they want to hang up, That's it. And that's fine. And we got 40% of the people want to know about the other stuff, the phone book, the answering machine, the audiogram settings that we can modify the audio on a little bit. So it's really up to the patient how they want to use the phone and how much they want us to show them.
I can't tell you the amount of things that I've purchased, and including my vehicle, that I use probably about 20% of the options of what it takes. My husband will come in and like, why are you doing it this way? I'm like, I don't know. Because that's all I know, because I did it once this time and it worked, so I'm going to stick with that. So how does CaptionCall work if someone has both a home phone and a mobile phone? And is it possible to get CaptionCall on both a home and a mobile if seniors have both? And what about couples that have like separate cell phones?
If you have a home phone and a mobile phone, we do have an app. We will install the home phone first, and then we would install the app on your cell phone. That way the app on your cell phone will sync up to the home phone. And then your phone book will be shared. That way if you add something in your phone book in your cell phone, it will show up in the phone book on your home phone. So you don't have to add things in both places. If you miss a call on the app and it's synced, it will show that you missed a call on your home phone as well. If you have a couple with separate cell phones, that's a good question. We can install an app on both phones, but you would have separate accounts. Or if you wanted to share, you certainly could install the app and just use both accounts. And you would have the same phone number if you shared the accounts.
Yeah, so there's definitely some nuances that might have to be, figured out depending on what your absolute personal situation is. So can you tell us any personal stories that of clients that you've worked with, people that have really come into this technology and just had it been kind of life-changing if you haven't had it before?
Yeah, I have many, many stories, but one of my favorite ones I like to share goes back to when I first started working for CaptionCall about 10 years ago, and I first started doing installs, and it really changed my perspective. So I was working part-time for CaptionCall at the time. I had another job. I thought it was a lifer at my other job. I was not ever going to leave my other job. I came across a 72-year-old guy whose son lived in North Carolina, and it was his only son. His wife had passed away years ago, so he was living alone. He could not hear on the phone, and he communicated. He had a full, real discussion with his son once every other year. So his son would fly to see him for Christmas every other year. That was the only time he really got to have, an in-depth discussion, because they could see each other face to face and actually talk. If you got on the phone with the son, everything was yes, no, very straightforward. And he knew his son knew his limitations, and he didn't want to frustrate his son. So there was not really meaningful conversation on the phone. And he told me this before I did the install for him. So I installed the phone for him, and he calls this kid right then and there on the spot. And he starts talking to him. His son thought something was wrong at first because Dad never calls him anymore. He said, "No, I'm fine. I'm reading the words on the screen." He starts talking. Tears are coming down his cheeks. I'm, trying to maintain my professional composure. And it was just a very emotional moment. And I just kind of realized in that moment, I was part of this process. This guy's going to be able to communicate with this kid now. He's going to have a new bond with him. And it was at that time I thought, I need to leave my other job. I need to resign. I feel like this is what I was meant to do. And so long story short, here I am 10 years later and doing work like this, and it's very, very emotionally rewarding. And I could tell you probably 20 more stories like that where it's just very life-changing, because especially when COVID hit, most folks use the phone as their connection to the outside world. That's how they find out about their family reunions, the next golf outing, the next breakfast with their buddies. And when they stop communicating on the telephone, they start to become hermits. And we're all social animals. You know, once we start becoming hermits, our physical health starts to go on the decline as well. So it's very important to stay connected. And fortunately, I get paid to do this kind of work and help people stay connected and stay healthy. So I'm very fortunate to do the work that I do.
Thank you. I think that just brings, such an important point home. Just that whole thought of everything that we've talked about today and how it's not one thing. It's not your eyes, it's not your ears, it's not your balance, it's not your connection. It is all of those things. And when one starts to decline, it is so easy for us to then push back and try and become less involved. We don't want to be a burden on anybody. We don't want to be a burden on our families. But the important thing to remember is there are people out there that can help you and that are dedicated to that thought of changing lives and helping people through their different expertise. So, just keep that in mind whenever you have a challenge and you think, oh, this is nothing. No, it is. It is, because if it's affecting your quality of life, it's definitely not nothing. So with that, I'm going to go ahead. We're well on time to go ahead and open it up for questions.